You don't think much of moving into a cheap apartment when you're broke, single, and barely hanging on to a night shift security job. It's just walls and a roof, and you tell yourself you'll only stay a few months until things stabilize. That's what I told myself when I signed the lease for Unit 6A of the Rutledge Building in downtown Milwaukee. The place was small, third-hand furnished, and smelled faintly of cigarette smoke and mold. But the landlord didn't ask too many questions, which was good because I didn't have many answers. I'd just gone through a mess, got fired from my old job after calling out too often to take care of my brother during his breakdown, lost my girlfriend in the middle of it all, and had started drinking more than I should. 6A was supposed to be a reset. But from the first night, something about it didn't sit right. It wasn't ghosts, not in the movie sense, but there was a kind of heaviness to the place. Like someone else had left pieces of themselves behind. Pieces that didn't want to be forgotten. The apartment above mine, 7A, was empty. Yet every night at exactly 2:13 a.m., I heard footsteps pacing across the ceiling. Slow, deliberate steps back and forth, pausing and then resuming again. The first time it happened, I went upstairs and knocked, thinking maybe the landlord had rented it out without mentioning it. No answer. I knocked again, louder. Nothing. When I went back downstairs and called the building's manager, she said without hesitation, "No one's in 7A. It's been locked up since last spring." I asked why, and she just said, "Maintenance issues," and hung up. That should have been the point where I packed my bags, but the rent was cheap, and I convinced myself I was imagining things. The sound kept happening, though, always at the same time, always the same pattern. After a week, I started recording it on my phone. The audio was clear, too clear. I even picked up faint breathing between steps. I showed it to a guy at work, and he laughed, said it sounded like an old tenant still making rounds. But I wasn't laughing when I came home one night and found my door slightly ajar, the deadbolt undone, the lock scratched. Nothing was missing, nothing broken, but someone had been inside. I changed the lock myself and installed a door jamb, started sleeping with a hammer next to the bed. Still, at 2:13 every night, the walking began again. One night I waited under the hatch that led to the attic above 7A. I climbed up, slow, holding a flashlight and the hammer. The attic smelled of rot and dust, and the floorboards creaked with every step. I found a locked door at the far end, freshly scratched around the handle. I pressed my ear to it and heard breathing. Real, raspy, human breathing. I knocked once. The breathing stopped. I backed away and left the attic. The next morning, I reported everything to the police. They came, checked the attic, said there was nothing there. Said the lock hadn't been tampered with. But I know what I heard. I started noticing other things. Lights flickering only in my unit, my toothbrush always slightly moved. Drawers I didn't open being ajar. Then came the writing. It started in the mirror, faint smudges that spelled out things like watching or wake up. I took pictures and showed my coworker, but he said it was probably condensation playing tricks. So I stopped telling people. But it didn't stop. I started dreaming of a man standing in the hallway, staring at me while I slept. He never moved, never blinked, just stood there, head slightly tilted. The dreams were always the same. The hallway, the man, the silence. Then one night I woke up and saw him for real, standing at the foot of my bed. My scream must have scared him off because I blinked and he was gone. I moved my bed into the living room that night, kept the lights on, called in sick for 3 shifts in a row. I finally got the nerve to check the building's history. Public records showed something interesting. A man named Carter Bell used to live in 7A night janitor, ex-military, kept to himself. He'd been missing since March. No body found, no signs of a struggle. Just vanished. His last known location was his apartment, the same unit above mine. I confronted the building manager, demanded answers. She got quiet, said, "Look, just don't go into the attic again." That was it. No explanation. That night, I blocked off the hatch with furniture. At 2:13, the walking started again, this time faster. Not pacing, charging. I sat on the couch, gripping my hammer, heart slamming in my chest. Then the footsteps reached the attic hatch and stopped. A knock followed. 3 times. I didn't move. Then a voice. "I need to come down now." It sounded tired, strained, almost familiar. I yelled that I was calling the cops, and silence followed. The next day, I called a friend who had a contact in private security. He brought cameras and set them up throughout my apartment. We synced them to a motion detector that would alert my phone. That night, nothing happened. I thought maybe it was over. But the next night, the alarm went off at 2:14. I opened the feed and saw something moving past the camera in my kitchen. Not a person exactly, but a shape. Bent, dragging a leg, hair matted to its face. It paused, turned toward the lens, and smiled. Then the feed cut. I ran. I didn't pack. I didn't lock the door. I just ran. I went straight to the cops, gave them everything. They went back in with a warrant. Inside 7A, they found a false wall behind the closet, a narrow space where someone had been living. Old food, blankets, photos of tenants, hundreds of them. Most were grainy, taken through vents or peepholes. Some were of me, sleeping, eating, showering. In one, I was brushing my teeth and the figure stood just behind me, partially hidden by the doorframe. They found a body back there too. Not Carter Bell, someone else. A woman decomposed beyond recognition. They still don't know who she was. The cameras were destroyed. My phone, stolen during the police sweep. I didn't go back. I slept in my car for 3 days before I found another place across town. Bright, new, open-floor plan. But I still sleep with a light on. And I still wake up sometimes at 2:13, expecting to hear footsteps. Nothing comes, not yet. But sometimes I look at the vents and wonder if someone else is watching, waiting, just like before.